No one touched her for years. She forgot what warmth felt like until one human embraced her. Zero in Station was in its slow death spiral. Years of budget cuts, cargo reroutes, and syndicate sabotage had turned the orbital facility into a decaying ring of metal and flickering systems. Some sectors still functioned, barely. Others, like Bay D-16, had fallen completely off the logs. No cameras, no patrols. No visitors unless they were desperate or lost. Adam Callan didn't want to be here. He had 3 weeks left on his temporary contract, standard hazard pay, plus hazard bonuses for every day he kept the emergency power grid from collapsing in on itself. He didn't ask questions when he took the job. Not anymore. He was 37, former shipboard engineer, too experienced for freelance tech gigs, too independent for military work. Zeroing was supposed to be an easy paycheck. Run diagnostics, reroute some juice, patch what you can, and don't talk to anyone unless they talk to you first. But the problem with decaying stations was they didn't follow the rules. Power lines routed into collapsed walls. Emergency systems were patched over by whatever local black market hands had done the last repair. No one knew which sectors were safe anymore. No one cared. He was following a dead conduit line when he found her. It was the quiet that struck him first. Not the kind of quiet that came from an empty hall, but the kind that absorbed sound. His boots hit the floor panels with a dull thump. The static buzzed in his ear. The relay comm that normally gave updates from the grid cut out as soon as he stepped into Bay D-16. There was no airflow hum, no clicking lights, no fan spin. The corridor dead-ended into a maintenance subroom. The heat readings on a scanner had shown a minor spike, enough to check out. He stepped through the open hatch, and then stopped. In the corner, near a half-exposed vent panel, sat someone who wasn't supposed to be there. She was sitting low, knees up, spine curved against the bulkhead, arms wrapped around her legs. Her skin was blue, cobalt, not bruised, just naturally smooth and glinting slightly in the faint light bleeding in from the corridor. Her hair was red, not red like dyed hair or rust, but rich and natural, though tangled and matted from weeks, maybe months, of neglect. It hung past her waist like string. Her face was thin. Her collarbones were sharply visible. She was barely clothed. A thin crimson wrap hung off her shoulders and across her chest, held together by what looked like an old strip of fastener. The hem was torn across her thigh. One side drooped low, exposing a line of hip. It looked like something made to display her, not protect her. She didn't move. Adam scanned the room again. Nothing. No active surveillance. No ID tags pinged. She wasn't listed on the station roster, which meant someone had written her off. He slowly crouched. Not close. Just enough to lower his profile. "You okay?" he said. Low, even tone. He didn't expect a response. She didn't answer. Didn't look at him. Her eyes remained half-lidded. He caught a faint tremble in her hands. He checked her collar. Standard slave registry clasp. The kind used by private syndicates, not corporate chains. But it had been deactivated. Unlocked. Maybe broken. Maybe left that way. Something in her posture told him she didn't believe he was real. Adam reached into the side pouch on his toolkit and pulled out a heat bar. Sealed. High calorie. He set it down on the floor, pushed it forward slightly with the back of his glove, and leaned back. Still nothing. He stayed crouched for another few seconds, then stood slowly. "I'll be back," he said. Then he left. He didn't log the visit. Didn't mention it when he checked in. He rerouted the power through the secondary junction and marked the terminal as unstable, standard excuse to keep others out. The next day, he returned. She was still there. Same spot. Same position. The heat bar was gone. He brought a water flask and a thin thermal cloth. Nothing fancy, just something clean. She didn't flinch this time when he walked in, but her eyes stayed low. Still no speech. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, as if she expected a strike and was bracing for it. He didn't move toward her, just sat against the opposite wall and sipped from his own flask, pretending like they were both just resting in a broken part of the station. He didn't ask her questions. He just stayed for a while, then left the cloth folded on a crate beside her. By the third day, Adam was beginning to piece it together. He asked quietly over a drink with a station scrub tech in the commissary, halfway joking to avoid suspicion. Any idea why Bay D16's not on the shift rotation? The scrub tech shrugged. That bay? One of the old syndicate holding rooms. They moved operations last year. Someone probably still dumps trash there. Then he leaned in. Or something they don't want to pay to dispose of. Adam said nothing. He went back that night. She was awake when he entered, watching, eyes open. He didn't speak, just brought a new set of wrapped nutrient tabs and sat again, further from her this time. She didn't move, but her eyes followed him. On the fifth day, she whispered. It wasn't a full sentence, just a question. Her voice cracked on the first syllable. Why? Adam looked up. She was staring directly at him now. Her eyes were violet, dull but focused. Why what? She swallowed, voice hoarse. Why don't you fear me? The question didn't match what he expected. He didn't answer right away. He could have said, why should I? But that wasn't enough. Instead, he said, you're not a threat. Her face shifted slightly. She didn't believe him. I've worked with power lines that nearly cooked me alive, he continued, tone dry. You just look like someone who needs a warm meal. That night, he left her a new wrap, a faded station maintenance jacket. Too large, still intact. It wasn't silk. It wasn't meant to expose her body. It was meant to cover, to keep warm. She didn't touch it right away. But when he returned the next cycle, she was wearing it. Sleeves rolled awkwardly. Shoulders swallowed in fabric. Still no smile. No tears. Just calm. She told him her name. Naria, she said quietly, voice no longer broken. I was cast out. Too quiet. Too slow. They stopped bringing buyers. Adam didn't reply. He just nodded. In that moment, she realized he wasn't afraid of her. And he wasn't there to buy her, rescue her, or punish her for still breathing. He was just there. And for the first time in years, she believed someone might stay. The cargo jacket she wore still smelled faintly of metal, coolant, and heat seal adhesive. It was nothing special. A worker's issue from one of the outer levels. But to Naria, it felt heavier than silk, warmer than the cracked vent she had clung to for survival. And when Adam returned and saw her wearing it, sleeves rolled awkwardly, collar tucked in like she was still trying not to take up space, he didn't say anything. He just offered her another heat bar. She accepted it this time without looking away. It had been 10 days since Adam found her, since someone treated her like a person and not a leftover unit. And still, no one else knew she was there. She didn't understand why he kept coming back. He brought nothing more than food, water, and silence. But it was the first silence that didn't feel dangerous. Today, Adam didn't sit across the room. He crouched near the exposed power junction at the far wall and opened his toolkit. His gloves scraped against the casing as he started stripping wires and reconnecting a bypass coil. She watched him now, not in fear, but with a quiet, studious attention. She hadn't seen someone work with that kind of care a long time. Maybe ever. Don't stare too long, he muttered without looking back. You'll think I actually know what I'm doing. The smallest breath left her, an exhale that might have been close to a laugh. Not quite. Adam paused his work. That a sound? He asked, over his shoulder. I don't remember, she said. He glanced at her, not pitying, just focused. You were Varellan cast? She nodded once. Fertility class? Another nod. Genetically tuned? Yes, she whispered. Perfect ratios. Until I stopped speaking. Until I stopped responding. They said I damaged market confidence. He absorbed that. Didn't ask follow-ups. Just said, that's not damage. That's survival. She blinked. Her throat tightened. No one had ever called it that before. You asked why I'm not afraid of you, he added. I've seen what real monsters do. You're not one of them. For a few moments, all she could hear was the low hum of the tools and the buzz of rerouted power. Then she asked what had been growing in her chest for days. Why are you helping me? He didn't stop working. You were freezing, starving, and alone in a forgotten corner of this station. What was I supposed to do, walk away? Yes, she said. She meant it. Everyone else had. Adam finished rewiring the junction. He powered it up. The vent beside her kicked on, soft, steady warmth spilling out. Her fingers flexed, surprised by the even heat. That should keep this place livable, he said, packing up. I redirected a line from a collapsed corridor. It'll trigger a few anomaly pings, but I spoofed the diagnostics. You're hiding me, she said. I am, he admitted. For now. He stood, wiped his hands on his pants, then hesitated. I don't know what they'll do if they find you, he said quietly. But I do know what happens to people left in dark places like this. Her voice trembled. You're not afraid you'll get in trouble. I already did, he said flatly. Years ago, I worked on a ship that smuggled medical aid into a red zone colony. We got caught. Lost my license. They say I'm lucky I didn't end up in a cage, too. Naria studied him, the wear in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders when he mentioned that story. She didn't know why, but it made her sit up a little straighter. She wasn't the only discarded one on this station. That night, she spoke more. In fragments, she told him about the first day she was auctioned, how the lights were too bright, how they made her stand for hours, smiling silently, how the first buyer never even touched her, just left her alone in a room and never came back. They said she was defective, emotionally shut down. She hadn't flinched, hadn't cried. That made her unsellable. A loss. She'd been rotated through 3 syndicate ships, eventually dumped on Zeroin after a backdoor deal with station security. No one came for her again. You know, Adam said gently, the silence doesn't mean you're broken. She looked at him. Sometimes silence is armor. She didn't say anything else that night. But when he left, she didn't curl back into the corner. She lay flat, on the jacket he'd left her, arms not wrapped around herself for once. The next morning, she was gone. Adam's heart spiked when he stepped into Bay D-16 and saw the corner empty. But then, he asked quietly over a drink with a station scrub tech in the commissary, halfway joking to avoid suspicion. Any idea why Bay D-16's not on the shift rotation? I wanted to see how the vent worked, she said. He exhaled slowly, letting the panic go. Next time, he said, leave a note. I didn't think you'd come back. I said I would. Her fingers tightened on the wire casing. No one means that, usually. I'm not no one, he said. That day, he gave her something new, an ID fob with no data. Burned clean, just a blank circuit chip. He slipped it under the maintenance panel beneath the vent. If something happens to me, scan that. It'll trigger a station-wide malfunction alert. Get someone here. Why would I need that? She asked, confused. Because, he said, stepping back, I don't want you waiting here forever. For the first time, she didn't just watch him walk away. She reached out, tentatively, and brushed her fingers against his coat sleeve. Not enough to stop him, just enough to say, I see you too. He didn't say anything. He just stood still long enough for her to feel the heat of his body against her fingertips. And then he left, carefully, quietly, as if the moment was something he didn't want to disturb. Back in the corridor, Adam checked the internal registry again. Still no mention of Naria. But rumors were starting. Someone had reported a movement anomaly in the maintenance levels. Slaver Syndicate reps had returned. 2 buyers, both unauthorized, had docked on level 4. Zeroin Station was starting to whisper again, and whispers meant danger. Adam came back early the next cycle. The corridors were quieter than usual, too quiet. On the station's lower tiers, silence meant movement somewhere else. Guards shifting, dock logs being cleaned, unauthorized visitors being ignored. He walked faster than usual, toolbox in hand, not because of urgency in his task, but because of the tight pull in his chest. When he reached Bay D-16, the vent was still humming. The lights he'd installed remained steady, barely flickering. The panel showed no tampering. That meant no one had been here. At least, not through the front. She was sitting by the cabinet again, cross-legged, studying the ID fob like it might tell her more than it did. I thought you said this was blank, she said without looking up. It is, he replied. No active registry, no serial. But it still feels like something, right? She nodded slightly. Adam set the toolbox down, ran a quick scan on the power junction, then sat across from her. It's just insurance. If someone tries to haul me off, you press it. It's not a rescue. It just starts a failure loop. That kind of chaos might buy you time. Naria looked up. How long do you think we have? Adam didn't answer at first. He checked the hallway monitor from a secondary relay behind the panel, then turned back. Someone was asking questions in the repair bay last night. About thermal anomalies. About rerouted power in dead zones. He paused. They weren't station crew. She didn't react, but her shoulders tensed just enough for him to notice. Who are they? Could be bounty scouts. Could be slaver agents checking for leaks. Do they want me? She asked. No, he said flatly. They want control. You're a reminder someone slipped through. He opened the small crate beside him and pulled out a ration cube, broke it in half, and handed her a piece. You're not the only one this has happened to, are you? She asked quietly, taking it. No, he admitted, but you're the first I found alive in a place like this. Her chewing slowed. She swallowed. What happened to the others? Adam's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. He stood instead and began pulling thin strips of plating from a crate. We need to move you. Not far. Just to a sealed crawl space in the utility corridor. There's an old emergency pod socket, disabled but stable. No cameras. I'll retrofit it with heat and passive venting. Why now? She asked. Because the silence around here has changed. Before, it meant no one cared. Now it feels like someone's watching the floor plans. Naria moved slowly, still barefoot, careful not to brush against sharp metal or loose wires. The station's dust clung to her ankles. The oversized jacket slid off one shoulder, exposing skin again, but this time she pulled it back up herself. As they stepped into the corridor, Adam kept checking corners. When they turned into the side tunnel, he pointed to the wall. There, a rusted panel halfway up the bulkhead. He pried it open with a tool, and inside, behind thick insulation, was a narrow recess. One of the old pod cavities from before Zeroin was downgraded. The life support unit was gutted, but the space was dry, sealed, and just big enough for her to curl up inside. I'll install a thermal pad and give you a comm buzz. 1 chime means stay hidden. 2 means come out. 3 means run. Where? She asked. I don't know yet, he said honestly, but I'll figure something out. When she climbed inside, she didn't ask for help. But when she looked up at him from the hatch, her eyes didn't hold suspicion anymore. Just resignation and something deeper. Something like trust. I don't want to hide forever, she said. You won't, he replied. But right now, this is how we survive. That night, Adam went back to his bunk in Section 7, locked the door, and stared at the cracked screen of his portable registry. He pulled up his old logs, blacklisted tags, gray market syndicates, doc records from before he was stripped of his license. There it was. Zelvin Trade Authority. Subcontracted biologicals. Varellan Series 3. That's what she was. A line item. A unit once worth a year's pay. But her ID didn't match any active trace. That meant someone had purged her data. She was invisible. Valuable to the wrong people. Dangerous to keep. Dangerous to help. He leaned back. His neck hurt. His hands were still stained with sealant. But the thought that kept circling in his head was this. If they find her now, after all this, they won't put her back in a cage. They'll silence her completely. Back in the crawl space, Naria didn't sleep at first. The thermal pad was warm. The light low. She curled with the jacket wrapped around her legs. She stared at the blank chip he'd left her. He had told her to press it only in an emergency. But what counted as one? Was waking up in someone's protection, after years of being forgotten, already a kind of emergency? She closed her eyes. Listened. No boots in the hallway. No laughter. No shouting. Only the soft, steady hum of heat. She let herself breathe. Somewhere above her, a system rebooted with a soft chirp. But it didn't wake her. Not this time. And for the first time in too long, she didn't dream of the cage. Adam didn't sleep. He sat hunched over the small desk in his bunk room, eyes locked on the flickering terminal screen as code scrolled past. He had bypassed station security protocols to trace auxiliary access logs, looking for recent entries in sectors that should have stayed dark. There was again a ghost ping in sublevel 6. Someone else had accessed a diagnostics hub near Bay D16. Not his log, not his route. He leaned back, rubbed his face, and exhaled slowly through his teeth. It meant time was running out. The next day, he woke before lights up and headed straight to the crawlspace module. He tapped twice on the heat vent, their signal. Naria pushed the hatch open after a moment, blinking against the corridor's dim lighting. Her face had changed. Not much, but enough. Her eyes met his quicker now. Her voice was less raw when she spoke. "You're early. So are the patrols," he said. "We need to accelerate." "Accelerate what?" she asked. He handed her a bag, scrap fabric, salvage boots, a utility belt with a clip badge. "We're going to get you off this station." Naria stared at the items, then slowly took them. "How?" "I've got a contact," he said. "Deck 6. Old smuggler. Deals in engine coils and blind transport crates. She owes me. If we time it right, she can slide you in her outbound manifest with cargo labeled non-organic." Naria shook her head, lips pressing tight. "You'll be seen with me." "Then we won't be seen," he replied. She hesitated. "And if we are?" Adam didn't answer. Instead, he crouched beside the hatch, pulled out a folded map, and spread it on the floor. "We go through the dehumidifier ducts. Crawl space connects to the water reclamation system. No cameras. Syndicate avoids it. They hate the smell. From there, it's a straight shot to Subdeck 6C. She studied the map, memorized it. "You've done this before," she said. "Not with someone else." She looked up sharply. "Why me?" His reply came slower, quieter. "Because when I found you, I didn't expect to care. But I do." That stopped her cold. She didn't know what to say. She only nodded once, eyes low, and began changing. Adam turned away, giving her space. But she didn't ask him to leave. When she finished, the transformation was subtle but effective. The boots made her step more stable. The belt gave her somewhere to place her hands. She wore the jacket like it was hers now, not something borrowed to disappear into. She was still Naria, but more herself than before. As they crawled through the ducts, the metal groaned faintly under their weight. Adam led, flashlight off. He counted the turns by feel, stopping only when needed. The space was narrow, the air thick with recycled moisture and grime, but Naria didn't complain. After 20 minutes, they dropped silently into a maintenance shaft behind Deck 6C. Adam peeked through the grate. A docking bay pulsed with amber lights. Crates stacked to the ceiling. Workers moved in shadows. At the far end, a tall woman in a gray jacket and green headscarf was arguing with a loading bot. "That's our ride," Adam whispered. "Stay close." They moved quickly, using crates as cover. No alarms. No guards. Yet, the woman, Mara, looked up when Adam approached. "Callan," she said, brows raised. "You're 2 years late on your favor." "I'm cashing it in," he said, nodding toward Naria. "Outbound crate. No inspection. Short-term storage pod. Doesn't breathe loud." Mara's eyes narrowed. "That a Varellan?" "She's a person," Adam said sharply. A pause. Then Mara shrugged. "Fine. Pod's loaded. Outbound ship leaves in 6 hours. Dock 94B. Don't be late." Naria stepped forward. "Thank you." Mara looked at her, then back to Adam. "She always polite." "She always survives," he replied. They left fast. No wasted movement. No extra words. But 20 meters down the access corridor, a siren burst to life overhead. Unauthorized movement. Sublevel 6. Sector 3. Adam grabbed her arm. "Run." They bolted down the path, ducking into a side vent as boots clattered across the floor behind them. Red lights pulsed across the bulkheads. Voices echoed. "I saw 2 shadows, one human, one tall." "Varellan. Go." Naria pressed against the wall, pulse racing. She was breathing through her nose, counting seconds, fighting the rising panic that had once been instinct. Adam checked the corner. 3 guards. Rifles. Syndicate crest. "Is this the end?" she asked. He looked at her. "No, it's the middle." They crawled back into a crawl space, one smaller than before. Lights cut out. Darkness wrapped around them. Her hands found his without thinking. He didn't pull away. She whispered, "I don't want to be cargo." "You won't be." "Then what?" He met her eyes. "You'll be free." She stayed silent for a long time. Then finally, she said, "Then I'll choose it. I'll climb in myself." "No more cages," he said. Only hiding places we walk out of. She nodded. From a hallway came another shout, closer now. Adam pulled a chip from his boot. This key opens the pod's inner seal. You'll have water, heat, and oxygen for 12 hours. After that, you're out. And you. I'll cause a distraction. Lead them away. You'll die. Not if I'm smart. She touched his face. Her fingers were cold. Then be smart. Then, for the first time since she arrived on Zero and Station, she kissed someone brief, desperate, real. No permission. No expectation. Only choice. Adam leaned into it. Just enough. Then pulled away. Go. And Naria ran into the dark. Toward the pod. Toward something that felt like possibility. He turned back down the corridor. Toward the boots, the rifles, and the noise. He didn't run. He just walked toward them. Calm. Ready. Because her warmth was worth more than his safety. The boots stopped 6 meters ahead. 3 figures. Light armor. Pulse rifles slung low, but ready. Their helmets bore the white, slash-across-black, syndicate issue. Not station security. Adam Callan didn't flinch. He stood in the middle of the corridor, hands loose at his sides, tool bag hanging from one shoulder. His jacket was zipped. His badge clipped visibly at his belt. He looked like what he claimed to be, just another maintenance grunt caught in the wrong part of a dying station. The lead officer stepped forward. Sector 6 is restricted. Adam didn't blink. Got a power fault in the coolant trunk. No one told me it was locked down. The second guard leveled his rifle halfway. You access subdeck 6C? I access a lot of places, Adam said. He kept his voice flat. The grid's falling apart down here. The third one shifted, checking a scanner. Thermal traces, 2 signatures. One Varellan, 1 human. Adam exhaled sharply, annoyed on purpose. So now shadows on a heat sensor are a reason to pull guns? Come on. Station leaks ambient heat like a sieve. You sure you're alone? Only voices I hear are yours, Adam replied. Then earned a pause. The lead officer didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't raise it either. We're searching this sector. Then do it. Adam stepped aside, posture calm. You'll find cracked pipes, dead panels, and about 30 rats that breed under Dock 94B. Nothing else. The lead stepped past him. If you're covering something, Adam smiled coldly. Then I'd be talking slower. He turned his back on them, deliberately, and walked. The guards didn't stop him. They didn't follow either. But the tension hung behind him like wire stretched to a breaking point. He didn't run. Running meant guilt. He just walked, steady pace, no stumbles, back towards Sector 5. Back toward the safe zone. Back toward nothing if they turned and checked the smuggler pod. He knew they would. Eventually. But he only needed a few hours. Inside the pod, Naria lay still. The walls were close, barely enough room to stretch. The thermal layer beneath her buzzed with recycled warmth. Her knees were pulled to her chest, arms around her stomach. Not out of fear, out of habit. Breathing was hard at first. Not from panic, from quiet. For so long, every breath had meant something: defiance, shame, pain. This time, it meant delay. It meant risk. But it also meant hope. She repeated that to herself like a rhythm. Hope. Risk. Hope. Outside the pod, muffled noise drifted through the paneling. Voices. Machinery. A comm unit clicking. Then silence again. Her fingers found the circuit key Adam had given her. She pressed it once. The interior light dimmed, signaling lock status confirmed. She was sealed in. A hidden life. She looked at the coat covering her legs. Still his. Her body ached in strange places. Not from cold or abuse. From stillness. Her muscles weren't used to waiting like this. She had survived years of neglect, months of nothing. But now that she was moving again, now that there was an end point, her body had started to remember itself. She pressed her forehead to the inner wall of the pod. Her whisper was so soft the panel barely caught it. You better be alive. 3 hours passed. Then the pod moved. The air shifted inside the container as magnetic clamps engaged. G-force rocked her gently backward. The hum of cargo lifts rose through the floor. A docking alarm buzzed somewhere in the distance. Then everything stilled. One final hiss of pressure, and then the weightless sensation of orbital drift. They had launched. She was off Zero Station. For the first time since she'd been discarded, sold, stored, and silenced, she was leaving. Adam stood in the back of a medbay alcove, hand pressed over a slowly bleeding cut at his hip. He'd taken a shallow graze. Not from a firefight, just bad luck when squeezing through an old crawl hatch to make it back without being followed. He hadn't reported it. No one would treat him anyway. He wasn't a priority, just another contractor. He was fine with that. He sat now on the edge of a cargo loader, watching the ships cycle out through the external port. He couldn't see her pod, couldn't track it. That was the deal. But he knew the ship, knew the route, knew it was heading for the outer rings, places where syndicates had no reach, where names could be changed and silence wasn't a punishment. He held her name in his thoughts like something delicate. Nerea. She wasn't broken. She had survived. And now she was gone. But he knew something else, too. She would find a way to live. And he would stay, for now, bleeding quietly in the shadows, until he could disappear just the same. The cargo doors opened with a long hydraulic hiss. Light poured in, bright, natural. Not the artificial yellow of station bulbs, but filtered daylight from an atmosphere dome. Warm, thin, real. Nerea blinked hard. The air smelled different. Not metal or lubricant or recycled skin cells. Earth, salt, green. Even the wind felt alive as it brushed her cheek. The outer colony was called Kestron Point, a fringe settlement built into the cliffs of an oceanic moon. Industrial on the surface, but loose in governance. No syndicate reach. No registry audits. Perfect for cargo routes, black market tech, and people trying to disappear. She stepped down onto solid ground. Her legs wobbled slightly. The pod had been tight, but she didn't fall. The jacket Adam gave her was still wrapped around her, its sleeves tied at the waist like a belt now. She carried nothing else. She didn't need to. Mara, the smuggler, met her at the dock ramp. "Your friend made it hard to keep you hidden," she muttered, checking a datapad. But he kept his promise. "You're off-grid. New ID. Fresh slate. You've got 2 nights in Sector 4H lodging. After that, you're on your own." "I'm used to that," Nerea said. "Not here you're not," Mara replied. "Place like this, people notice silence. Don't let it swallow you again." Nerea didn't respond, just nodded. That night, in a room with 4 walls, a real bed, and no vents humming above her, she stood in front of a mirror. Not polished metal, glass. She saw herself clearly for the first time in years. She was thinner than she remembered. Hair tangled, lips cracked, shoulders tense. But her eyes, violet, alert, were alive. She touched her collarbone, where the registry mark had been. Faded now. Nothing left but scar tissue. She whispered his name. Adam. 3 days later, Adam stepped off a transit skiff onto the same colony. Not because he planned it, because he didn't have a choice. Zero and Station had locked down. All contracts voided. Personnel shuffled or detained. His fake ID had flagged. He slipped out just ahead of a full sweep. A bribe to Mara bought him space in the smuggler's quarter. No welcome. No allies. He limped slightly, the wound on his side still tender beneath the dressing. He carried nothing but his tool pack and a sealed chip drive with rerouted creds. When he reached the cliffside housing units, he asked for a bed. Cheap. Unlisted. The woman behind the counter looked him up and down, saw the dry blood, said nothing, and handed him a key. Room 11. No window. 1 cot. A sink. He slept for 12 hours straight. The next morning, a knock came. He ignored it. Another knock. 3 slow, spaced taps. He froze. The pattern was familiar. He stood, stepped to the door, and opened it. Nerea stood there, wearing cleaner clothes, plain colony fiber pants, sleeveless top, jacket tied around her waist. Her hair had been washed, combed, pulled back loosely. But it was her, alive, whole, staring at him. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then she walked in. He stepped aside without question, without hesitation. When the door closed behind them, he asked, "How did you know?" "You told me where to go if things went wrong," she said. "They did. But you weren't the one who needed rescuing." He sat down on the cot. Exhaled. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. "You were. I thought you'd be safer without me." "I'm not." She crossed the room slowly. Stopped in front of him. "Every night since I left that pod," she said, I felt like half of me was still on zeroing. You were free. I was alone. She knelt down in front of him, her hands resting on his knees. Not as a question, not as a plea, but as a choice. I don't want a debt, she whispered. I don't want gratitude. I want you. Adam didn't move at first. Then his hand reached up, hesitating only a moment, before brushing her cheek with his fingers. The touch was gentle, deliberate, real. Her eyes closed briefly. She leaned into the warmth. No more hiding, he said. No more cages, she replied. They stayed that way, close, silent, breathing the same air, until the sun dipped below the horizon outside the thin walls. And for the first time in both of their lives, there was no cold left to outrun. The wind on Kestrin Point rolled in heavy from the sea that morning, cooler than usual, salted with mist. A thin veil of fog hung over the rooftops of Sector 4H, softening the edges of the metal structures, hiding old scars in new light. Inside their room, Nerea stood by the small window, barefoot, awake before the first delivery drones passed overhead. She was wrapped in a blanket from the cot, hair loose across her shoulders, the rise of her back barely covered. Adam stirred behind her. She heard it, his breath shifting, the fabric of the cot creaking under his weight, but she didn't turn yet. She was still taking it in. Freedom was louder than she expected, not in sound, but in feeling. Each moment asked, "What will you do now?" And for the first time, there wasn't fear behind the question, only choice. He stood and stepped behind her, arms gently sliding around her waist. She leaned back into him without hesitation. No flinch, no tension, just skin to skin, warm and certain. "How long have you been up?" he asked quietly. "A while. You okay?" "I'm not sure I know what that means yet." She glanced over her shoulder, met his eyes. "But I'm better." They stood like that for a while. No need to move. Adam rested his chin on her shoulder, arms still around her. "We got a message last night." She turned. "From who?" "Mara." Nerea tensed. Only slightly. She didn't trust messages. Messages meant someone might still be looking. She said the syndicate team that tagged us on Zeruin. He took a breath. "They're gone." One of their ships vanished in the belt. Other went dark a few days later. "Mara thinks it wasn't an accident. She thinks you did something." He shook his head. "I didn't. Not directly. But when I left the station, I scrambled the registry server logs. Wiped years of transaction trails. The kind that would piss off higher-ups if someone pulled attention to them." Her lips curved. "You left a mess. I left a fire. And I let their greed do the rest." She leaned into him again, let her head rest against his chest. "So we're safe." He ran a hand through her hair. "We're off their grid. We've got nothing to want anymore." "No." Her voice was firmer now. "I'm not nothing." He looked down at her. "No, you're not." Later that day, they went to the local registry office. It was a squat building, half buried in rock, guarded only by a bored-looking clerk who didn't ask questions. Adam handed over 2 blank identity chips. He gave them new names. Clean files. Nerea Veluin remained her first name. She didn't want to let that go. She said it quietly, with purpose. She signed the data pad beside him, then pressed her palm to the scanner. And just like that, she existed again. When they stepped out into the sunlight, she didn't squint. She didn't shield her eyes. She looked up. They rented a small plot near the edge of the settlement, on the cliff, overlooking the water. The place was unfinished, with rusted solar panels and a cracked door frame, but it had real ground beneath it, and space, and quiet. They worked on it together. He repaired the stabilizers. She patched the roof. They scavenged furniture piece by piece, never rushing. Every day was something new. Wooden crates repurposed into shelves, old thermal blankets sewn into curtains, scraps of wire rerouted into light. One night, weeks later, after they'd finished replacing the final power cell, Adam walked in from the exterior hatch to find her sitting on the floor, back against the wall, legs tucked under her. She wasn't crying, just breathing deep. When she looked up at him, she said, "I was touched today." He stepped closer. "What happened?" "A child," she said softly. "Bumped into me. Just a street thing." She smiled, apologized, then ran off. He knelt beside her. I didn't freeze, she whispered. I didn't panic. I didn't brace for pain. He nodded, not speaking. And when I thought about it later, she continued, I wanted to tell you. She leaned into him slowly, her hand moving to his chest. Can I stay? She asked again, voice steady this time. In your warmth? He pressed his forehead to hers. Always. That night, when they lay together, there was no fear between them. No comfort. No power taken or given. Just touch. Just breath. Just warmth. The next morning, no one came looking for them. And by the end of that week, Naria stopped listening for boots in the hallway. Because she finally understood. The station was gone. The cage was behind her. And the man beside her wasn't holding her to keep her from running. He was holding her because she had chosen to stay.